Okay, welcome guys. We're back for hopefully the conclusion of our study in To Kill a Mockingbird, and we left off with the debate between Sheriff Hecate and Atticus regarding what to do about this case of the death of Bob Ewell. And we saw that who Hecate is thinking about is Boo Radley. And he says, taking the one man who's done you and this town a great service. Okay, so Boo Radley, he's done a great service by saving Scout and Jem, killing Bob Ewell, and then dragging him and his shy ways into the limelight. So what's he talking about? Not putting Boo Radley in a spotlight. Not making all this attention come on him for the good deed he's done. Because what's going to happen? He said, well, all the ladies in Maycomb, including my wife, will be knocking on his door bringing angel food cakes. So if the town finds out Boo Radley was the hero, they're going to want to celebrate him publicly as a hero, which is going to bring lots of attention to him. But remember, Boo Radley was a recluse, someone who stayed inside. And why did he stay inside? By choice. He doesn't like the outside world. People treated him badly, were prejudiced against him. Also, he probably has some form of mental illness. Doesn't say what exactly, but he has some kind of anxiety disorder. So actually, the sheriff is thinking about Boo, and in a way, he's practicing Atticus's moral principle. He's thinking, what's best for Boo Radley. He's putting himself in Boo Radley's shoes. And the fact that he says it's a sin to do that should obviously, by now, connect in your mind Mockingbird. Right? It's a sin to kill a mockingbird. Well, if he's saying it's a sin to bring the spotlight on Boo Radley, that's a way of killing a mockingbird. Bringing his world kind of upside down. Alright, we'll just get to the end of this chapter. Mr. Tate was trying to dig a hole in the floor with the toe of his boot. He pulled his nose and then massaged his left arm. I may not be much, Mr. Finch, but I'm still Sheriff of Maycomb County, and Bob Ewell fell on his knife. Good night, sir. Mr. Tate stamped off the porch and strode across the front yard. His car door slammed and he drove away. Atticus sat looking at the floor for a long time. Finally he raised his head. Scout, he said, Mr. Ewell fell on his knife. Can you possibly understand? Atticus looked like he needed cheering up. I ran to him and hugged him and kissed him with all my might. Yes, sir, I understand, I reassured him. Mr. Tate was right. Atticus disengaged himself and looked at me. What do you mean? Well, it'd sort of be like shooting a mockingbird, wouldn't it? Atticus put his face in my hair and rubbed it. When he got up and walked across the porch into the shadows, his youthful step had returned. Before he went inside the house, he stopped in front of Boo Radley. Thank you for my children, Arthur, he said. Alright, so this line is super important because Scout realized the truth. Okay. Both what really happened, the truth about the killing, okay, So the truth about reality, but also, she also realizes the moral principle versus the letter of the law. Letter of the law means you just follow it exactly like a recipe. Always follow the exact rules no matter what. Well, that would mean bringing Boo Radley in front of the court, having this whole case, and being in the public, and making him uncomfortable, and making his life miserable. And Hecate doesn't want to do that. Hecate is using a moral principle, okay, which is, like we discussed before, empathy. It has to do with the heart of an issue. Remember, Mr. Underwood wrote in his paper, Atticus doesn't, have any influence in the courts of the hearts of men. So the law had failed Atticus. And Hecate knows the law had failed. And so if they bring this case before the law, maybe something is also going to fail again. And so they're maybe trying to get at a higher law, a higher kind of ethics, higher morality or principle, which again is based on empathy. And this is going to defeat racism and prejudice at the heart level, just like Scout did with Mr. Cunningham. So, we're into the final chapter, and Boo Radley shows sensitivity toward Jem. He wants to kind of pat Jem's head while he's sleeping. So we see Boo's care, Boo's compassion for the children and for Jem and his suffering. So he touches Jem's hair, and then he actually asks Scout, "Will you take me home?" And this is the final scene where she's going to walk him home. He almost whispered it in the voice of a child afraid of the dark. I put my foot on the top step and stopped. I would lead him through our house, but I would never lead him home. Mr. Arthur, bend your arm down here like that. That's right, sir. Notice she stopped calling him Boo. She has matured. She sees him as Mr. Arthur now, his true name. I slipped my hand into the crook of his arm. He had to stoop a little to accommodate me, but if Miss Stephanie Crawford was watching from her upstairs window, she would see Arthur Radley escorting me down the sidewalk as any gentleman would do. Even though Scout is leading him, she makes it look like he's leading her. So she's protecting him and not making him look ridiculous as an adult man being led by a child. So, again, this all shows her maturity and her empathy toward him. We came to the streetlight on the corner, and I wondered how many times Dill had stood there hugging the fat pole, watching, waiting, hoping. I wondered how many times Jem and I had made this journey. But I entered the Radley front gate for the second time in my life. Boo and I walked up the steps to the porch. His fingers found the front doorknob. He gently released my hand, opened the door, went inside, and shut the door behind him. I never saw him again. So where is she? She's on Boo's front porch. Okay? On the Radley front porch. This is going to be very important. Okay? Because it gives her Boo's perspective. And we'll see that in a moment. Neighbors bring food with death and flowers with sickness and little things in between. Boo was our neighbor. He gave us 2 soap dolls, a broken watch and chain, a pair of good luck pennies, and our lives. But neighbors give in return. We never put back into the tree what we took out of it. We had given him nothing, and it made me sad. I turned to go home. Streetlights winked down the street all the way to town. I had never seen our neighborhood from this angle. Right? That's the new perspective. How did Boo see her and the kids and the neighbors? There were Miss Maudie's, Miss Stephanie's, there was our house. I could see the porch swing. Miss Rachel's house was beyond us, plainly visible. I could even see Miss Dubos's. I looked behind me. To the left of the brown door was a long shuttered window. I walked to it, stood in front of it, and turned around. In daylight, I thought, you could see the post office corner. Daylight in my mind, the night faded. It was daytime and the neighborhood was busy. Miss Stephanie Crawford crossed the street to tell the latest to Miss Rachel. Miss Maudie bent over her azaleas. It was summertime, and 2 children scampered down the sidewalk toward a man approaching in the distance. The man waved and the children raced each other to him. It was still summertime and the children came closer. The boy trudged down the sidewalk dragging a fishing pole behind him. A man stood waiting with his hands on his hips. Summertime, and his children played in the front yard with their friend, enacting a strange little drama of their own invention. It was fall, and his children fought on the sidewalk in front of Miss Dubos's. The boy helped his sister to her feet, and they made their way home. Fall, and the children trotted to and fro around the corner, the day's woes and triumphs on their faces. They stopped at an oak tree, delighted, puzzled, apprehensive. Winter, and his children shivered at the front gate, silhouetted against a blazing house. Winter, and a man walked into the street, dropped his glasses, and shot a dog. Summer, and he watched his children's heart break. Autumn again, and Boo's children needed him. Notice it's Boo's children now. So this is all from Boo's perspective. It recaps the whole story. She's seen through his eyes. Okay? So we have Boo's eyes. We have her in Boo's shoes. Right? In Boo's skin. In Boo's shoes. The whole thing from his perspective, which is the whole point of Atticus's teaching, right? Atticus was right. One time he said, there's a little lag going on, so Atticus was right. One time he said, you never really know a man until you stand in his shoes and walk around in them. Just standing on the Radley porch was enough. Now she finally understands. She comes to the new knowledge of reality. Understands the truth about Boo. And Boo represents her childhood innocence. So, finally, she's moving from innocence to maturity. She's seen with new eyes. She's gone through key experiences. And of course, the computer has to do something strange right at the end. Okay, so innocence to maturity. Because she finally gets rid of the childish way of seeing Boo Radley and reality. So, her innocence dies. So who's the final mockingbird? To kill a mockingbird? Well, we had Tom Robinson, Boo Radley, and finally, Scout. She's the mockingbird who dies. Her innocence dies, actually. So the final mockingbird to be killed is Scout's innocence.